Hi, have you ever wanted to restart your relationship, or have you ever been in a relationship that has kind of died and grown stale? Well, we've actually got an episode tonight for you that will help spark that again.
Yes, this is about role-playing and using fantasy in the bedroom. My name is Elizabeth Wood
And I'm Dan Powers.
with Beyond the Bedroom. Welcome to Naked Talk. Naked Talk is where we get naked in a conversation of sexuality, intimacy, and relationship. We strip down and expose the bare facts so that you can learn what it takes for your love to thrive. Welcome, welcome. I was noticing that a bunch of my props just fell off of my lap. So tonight we're going to be talking to you about role-playing and using different, if you will, personalities in the bedroom. So it's a way that you can spark that creativity, bring some juice, bring some zest, bring your other personality disorder actually into the bedroom, make it fun and make it about play.
Personality order.
Oh yeah, personality order, that's the title. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that happens in relationships as we start to become more intimate, get to know everything about each other, is the eroticism starts to really kind of taper off. And I don't know if you've noticed in relationships that you're currently in or relationships that you've been in the past that that's happened. I know in my relationships in the past that's absolutely happened. We've become roommates, we're best of friends, but eroticism just kind of...
The zest, the verve, the fire, where did it go?
Yeah. So one of the things that you can do to rekindle that is to introduce fantasy into your relationship. And so we've got a number of tools and ideas for you on how to be able to do that.
Yeah, and fantasy, what happens in your rich fantasy life in your mind that you don't share with your partner, that's not necessarily what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is some way that you can engage in that fantasy or that role playing, great word for it too, or that playfulness and bring it into the bedroom. One of our teachers was saying that the things that are not appropriate and not proper outside of the bedroom are totally fine inside the bedroom. Like, you want to play Indians and Chiefs, go ahead. Bring out the dull arrows and I don't know, perhaps you have that, what's it called on the back?
Quiver?
The quiver on the back, and dress up as an Indian, chasing after that princess, something like that. You're not going to do that outside in the real world, but you can do that in the bedroom.
So I didn't know what prop she was actually bringing to this, so this is kind of fun to learn.
Indians and Chiefs. Anything that's okay to play.
Wasn't it Cowboys and Indians?
Well, you can do Indian and Chief, and Cowboys and Indians too. But it's like, that any of the above. Perhaps you want to be, the English butler. And or the English, well no, this is pretty masculine. Perhaps you want to be the English butler. Here, Dan, you should wear it, and I can order you around to do things that I want you to do inside the bedroom. That could be fun for you to use too. People, I got lots of props. Anyway, it's a way to just bring out the fun. Of course, we negotiate all of this before and outside, beyond the bedroom. You negotiate for what you want to do. You can take turns.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that's really fun about this is, like Elizabeth said earlier, is nothing is really off limits. Things that you wouldn't even dream about doing or talking with friends about, you can do with each other. Act like a prostitute and go to a bar. I was reading one of these fantasy books that different fantasies that people were living out. And her partner went to a bar, sat at opposite ends of the bar, and just started talking with other people, and eventually started making eyes at each other. And then he eventually bought her a drink through the bartender. She sent a note to him, and so they talked about how it really started to spark something in the relationship. Now, is that something that they would normally have done? Would they have worn some skimpy outfit and gone to hunt for men or hunt for women? No.
Well, what they were doing is they weren't actually hunting for other people. They were flirting with other people, but they were hunting for each other. And so it was...
Right, but that was my point, is they weren't there. This isn't something that they would normally have done targeting other people. They were specifically doing it for each other,
yes,
to amp up that
They're
energy within their
seducing
relationship.
each other, yes, as if it were the first time they met. So, I mean, those kinds of things are a lot of fun, and you dress the part. Perhaps you want to be a high priestess. Let me see if, while I'm talking, I can figure out how to get this on. You can do some type of ceremonial thing and dress in those costumes. People, when was the last time, I have no idea what this is going to do to the color, but when was the last time you dressed in ornamental or fun, playful gear? For those who have kids, perhaps you do it at Halloween. I almost said Thanksgiving.
I think we do
Anyway,
it Thanksgiving too.
yeah, put
That's probably where
on.
more of the Indians and Pilgrims play that
Here's
role.
the Batman mask I was talking about, or a Catwoman. I'm not sure what kind of mask she wore, but you can play Batman and Robin, perhaps. You can play Batman and the Joker. Any of those things that are going to bring fun, play, and fantasy into your lives. And look at this one. I just got to show you because it's so fun and we haven't worn it yet. This would be some kind of, some kind of tribal, oh, where am I going? Some kind of tribal thing that you could do. Oh, our peacock feathers are falling. But all of this, I mean, wear the costume to help enhance that personality that you want to play out in the bedroom. It can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and as a way to try to gear yourself up towards some of the stuff, there's a number of books that are out there that have these kinds of things in it. And one is the book on the Quodoshka. They've got something called Lover's Masks. And in it, there's the 8 different directions on the wheel that talk about the different things that you might be able to do, different personas that you might be able to adopt specifically for an interaction with your partner.
Yeah, it's a great book. What's the title?
The Teachings of the Quodoshka, I believe.
Yeah, it's
Actually, I have it right here.
well,
It's
Dan
Sexual
can,
Practices of the Quodoshka.
yeah, that's something
Right.
that you can put on. Well, there he goes.
Mm-hmm.
For different ideas, role playing, anything like out in the real world, we would never talk back to a cop, or as a woman, I would never seduce a cop. Well, perhaps Dan can come with some kind of, what is it, shield? What's that thing called?
Badge.
Oh, badge. See, I don't even know. I don't play that one very well. A badge and a policeman's hat and, some handcuffs that I could easily get out of, and I could backtalk him. Stuff like that. Like, I could boss him around. Those are the types of things that you want to do if that is something that will be playful and fun inside the bedroom.
Now, one of the things that I thought is really interesting and like about the book on the Quodoshka with these lovers' masks is it's like different areas, personas. So you can have the wanton, lusty lover. And so what that would look like is really wanting to aggressively make love with your partner. You have all that passion, all that buildup that's associated with it. Now,
seduction, it's the
Right.
sexiest part. That wanton, lusty lover, it's full of like verve and like,
Right.
just like a lot of heat. That's a great one. And then there's that, I put on the cape, that priestess, that high priestess, something more ceremonial. There's another one called the adventurer. Explorer.
Yeah, adventure explorer. So trying new things that you wouldn't ever do normally. I was reading one of the fantasies that was talked about in this book, and they talked about how they went on this exploration of trying something new, going into a different place, actually making love in a public setting that was private, but a place that she had actually graduated from high school. So it allows you to kind of look at different areas. And according to the book, we live these lovers' masks all the time, regardless of whether we are actually in the mode of having sex or not. But it allows us to, or I should say, we're always putting out some kind of a sexual persona. One of them is the businessman, goal-oriented, career-oriented type thing. Bossy.
Actually, I think those are more archetypes, and these, what
No,
they're
that's lover's
specific.
mask.
I know, but they're archetypes that are actually being applied to the realm of sexuality. We wear masks, and we move through the world constantly with masks. I mean, the way that we interact with our boss, perhaps, is very different than if we were the boss interacting with our cohorts or our employees. So we wear these archetypes all through the day. And what the Quodoshka has done is that it has actually overlaid them and applied them to our sexuality. Do you think that's
Yep.
more appropriate?
Yep.
Yeah. How you act with a friend who's just heard, some news that may be troubling for them. That's more of the caretaking persona, and really holding and nurturing them. So the archetypes, as we apply them to what happens inside the bedroom, can be really exciting. They can also be very sensual. They can also be very primal. As I said, ceremonial, passionate,
Yeah, well,
inquisitive.
I can read through them.
All of those are what we hope to have you go out and explore, because it can really enhance an already fabulous relationship, but it certainly can spark something that's grown a little bit more stale over time.
All right, so what they have here, I gotta get my
I
glasses.
can do it.
Okay.
So I'll read 4 of them. The goal-oriented career lover. That's, taking leadership, taking you
Playing the boss,
having
telling
that
your subordinate what to
prowess.
do.
And either partner can play that role. Perhaps both could play
Well, you
that
play
role.
both of you could play it, but one would be the boss, one could be the secretary, for example, or one could be the female CEO that's bossing, the up and coming
young
male
employee.
Or something like that.
The next one is the temple virgin lover. Someone who's a little bit more shy. It's one of their first experiences. What would you wear for something like that? Almost as if it were, the 1950s, 1960s new bride, something like that. Would you wear something different? Of course you would, than what you would wear in the goal-oriented career lover. A little bit similar just by title, but the shy, curious lover isn't someone who's, necessarily virginal, but more of like that.
Well, it's a curiosity. Like, I was married for 17 years and had never actually explored the inside of my then wife's vagina. I never knew it. And after we had gotten divorced, I actually went into a relationship with another woman who allowed me to do it. In fact, invited me to explore. Like, I had never felt inside.
And most men are not ever given permission to really look and ask questions. What's this? What's that? Oh, this doesn't look like I thought it would. Because so much of us grow up with porn or, the old-time magazines.
Right, and that you can't look. I mean, even with your partner, a lot of times, especially in our age group, we had sex in the dark. And even
That's
older.
a great one. Just having sex with the lights on. Perhaps that's new for you.
And if not, which I hope it's not these days, but still, some of the things that you can do is, explore different parts of the body that you haven't really looked at before.
Yeah, what actually could be an erogenous zone? Because so much of the focus here in the West is sex as it relates to our genitals. Our skin is our largest sex organ. Where else can you feel pleasure? Be curious about that. Wonder. And, venture
How can we explore beyond the genitals?
That's a good one. And we've already talked a little bit about the wanton, lusty lover. What kind of passion can you bring in there? What kind of, noises or moans or groans? How can you use your voice to really enhance that lustiness? It's the most all of these can be filled with passion.
I remember the movie Basic Instinct. I think it was Basic Instinct, where Michael Douglas is there with one of his female partners, and they just start to go at it, and he throws her up against the wall, and he's ripping her clothes. That is what I would see
And
as the wanton
that's
lusty.
that Hollywood wanton lusty lover.
That's still fun, though.
Yeah, 8.5 weeks. Wasn't that the
9.5 weeks?
9.5 weeks. What's
She
8.5?
shorts things down.
9.5 weeks. I want to get to it. You can leave your hat on. What a sexy. Where's my hat? I think I threw it over the side. That sexy, seductive dance. These are all things that you can employ. And we're just throwing out a few ideas. He's looking for the hat. We're just throwing out a few ideas. I mean, there are way, you can be way more creative than we can be in this short period of time that we're talking to you. There are many times that I've worn this hat, and I happen to be of English heritage, so I play with that. Play your favorite hero, the Avengers. What can you do to dress up like Thor? The old-time
Black
Avengers? Yeah, the old-time Avengers was that British show where there were these bowler hats and an umbrella. That's the Avengers that I remember. I'm really aging myself. What was
I
that
don't even
lady's
remember that
name?
one.
Or what was James Bond? What was his secretary?
Moneypenny.
Oh, Miss Moneypenny. Yeah, I mean, play with those type of personas. Perhaps you have a favorite heroine or favorite hero that you might really want to, Wonder Woman that you might want to explore. What would that be like in your bedroom? And there is a word of caution. I want people to be very, very careful, because I may have told this story before, but when I worked at the sex therapy clinic, Loyola University Sexual Dysfunction Clinic, years and years and years ago, we were told a story about how a gentleman was playing, Superman, and he climbed up to the top of their
First he
wardrobe.
tied his wife up, right?
Oh, he tied his wife up onto their bed,
I
and
assume nude.
yeah, I assume she was naked. And his plan was to leap over, like flying over from the bureau onto their bed where she was tied, and have his way with her, seduce her somehow. Well,
It's
anyway,
a warm summer day.
it was a warm summer day, the windows open, neighbors probably outside in the backyard pulling weeds, having a barbecue.
Probably weren't like today's homes where they're right on top of each other, though. But
Well, the gentleman leapt, from the bureau and boom, hit the ceiling fan and went straight down, missing the bed completely. Well, his poor wife was tied up and didn't know what to do. She called his name a number of times. He was out cold. So she started screaming. And sooner rather than later, her neighbors, who apparently were in a backyard barbecue, came over. They knew, I don't know what her name was, Mary was in distress. So they came over wondering what was happening, and they'd grab rakes, and they'd grab baseball bats, and a little putt-putt golf club, came running upstairs, had to go into Mary's room where she was still screaming, threw open
tied
the
up to
door.
the bed.
There she was, tied up naked, and flat on the ground was her superhero, Superman, on the floor, out cold. So people, be very careful when you're playing with these other multiple personality orders, and be
Just
safe.
think. I mean, common sense really does play a role in all of humanity.
And again, what we have said many times during the Naked Talks that we've provided for you, it's safe, sane, and consensual.
Mm-hmm.
While that man in the Superman cape thought he was sane, it was a little nuts to leap from the bureau over to the bed with the ceiling fan on. Poor guy. His story lives on.
Well, I can see how people can really get caught up in what's going on, and they get so roused, so excited because they're playing something that they haven't played in a long, long time or done in a long, long time. So I could see that he could have been focused on other things,
Sure.
so to speak.
He probably thought he was, much younger than he was. Yeah, I'm just playing the part, people. I don't know where I'm going with this. But take out your costume box or your costume wardrobe and explore, laugh. That's what so much of this is about. We take things so seriously. And when a relationship has become a little bit more boring or a little bit more familiar, how do you start this? I mean, if I was in the wardrobe closet and doing all this kind of stuff, Dan certainly would be laughing. And then, because I'm a little crazy, if we hadn't already been doing this before, I could say, wow, this would be really fun. Hey, maybe I'm going to seduce you in some crazy getup. Would you be up for that? And more than likely, he's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Now,
thumbs
that
up.
actually brings up a really good point, because as people bring up fantasy, I've actually read somewhere that fantasy is one of the hardest things to talk about with your partner. I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense. If I were to tell my partner that I have a fantasy to do something, and my partner thinks I'm absolutely nuts and says, oh, that's just disgusting, or, whatever, that's stupid or that's silly, then, I'm going to have a hard time really kind of opening up with my partner again in the future. And one of the things that we really would like to ask that you do is, if you start to talk about fantasy with each other, then do it with an open mind. Look and explore things. Look at something that you might not even consider. There's a number of things that are out there, lists that you can go through of different fantasies that people have. And there's an unlimited number of fantasies that are out there. And so explore them. And, listen to your partner. And if it's something that your partner might be interested in doing, there's actually an exercise that you can do where you go through a list of fantasies and you look at a fantasy and say, either absolutely I have to do this, or I could live with it or live without it, or absolutely not. And so then you go through that, but don't really, I want to really stress, be cautious with your partner. If there's something that you really don't absolutely want to do, but your partner says, yeah, that might be something I would be interested in trying or exploring, then don't try to humiliate them for it. Say, that's just something I'm really not interested in, and let's move on to something else. And then don't bring it up again.
And there are a lot of books that put out, if you will, lists of, common fantasy themes. So you don't have to think about them on your own. More than likely, one of those lists is going to touch upon something that you like, and certainly touch upon ones that you don't. So you don't have to reveal your fantasies, your deep fantasies, specifically. You can use the guidebook, if you will, to say, oh, let's look at these together. And again, beyond the bedroom. Do not do this in the middle of the night as somebody's about to fall asleep. Pick your opportunity. Do it when, you probably just had dinner or sharing cocktails together, but do it somewhere where it's a little bit more neutral than inside the bedroom.
And be sure not to be, absolutely drunk either, because that could cause some problems because we're not really in a sane state of mind at that point.
Sane and sober comes in here. A lot of S words here. But we want it to be silly and playful and sexy and sensual, because that's what we want to bring back into the bedroom so that you can reignite what's already there. And there are a lot more people, as I've said, that are way more creative than we are. I'm not inside your head. You're not inside of mine. Get those books. Get those resources that will really help you bring role playing into the bedroom.
Absolutely. And like she said, everybody has different ideas of what's pleasurable, what might be desirable. Our upbringings are different. I can see people that grew up in the church maybe wanting to play with something that's religious related or themed, and somebody who's not, maybe it's cowboys and Indians. Who knows?
Maybe it's cowboys and Indians.
Right, and it's totally up to you and what works for you. And again, fantasy. Who is it that told us? In Midori, I think, wasn't it? Essentially said that anything in the fantasy world is fair game. You can look at it, you can explore it. It doesn't mean that you are a sexual deviant. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're a good person either. It's whatever it is that
it's
turns you on.
imagination. Let them run. Yes, Dan used a great word. What turns you on? That's the biggest key. And for both partners, if it's not a turn on to the other partner, then don't do it, because it's got to be fun for both of us to engage in it. That's where you're going to get the most oomph. That's where you're going to get the most juice. That's where you're going to get the most passion. So that's what, again, and Midori said, safe, sane, and consensual.
Yeah, and that goes back to, she's into the BDSM world. And that's a whole other area that people are starting to explore, especially with 50 Shades of Grey coming out. So, and we actually have another Naked Talk that we've done in the past, a couple of them on BDSM world and things you can do. And you can take that to huge extremes, or you can play with it lightly. I mean, simple tying up, spanking, things like that, versus, the really, what I would call out there stuff for most people, which some people like. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So that about wraps up tonight's version of Naked Talk. We want to thank you for being part of this potent conversation. As always, please feel free to add comments, ask further questions, because it's from you that we continue to grow and develop. My thought for one of the next Naked Talks is about how to have sex in recovery or during recovery, or positions for those who may have sprained, a wrist or a shoulder. Hip surgery. We may find that sex and intimacy becomes more difficult. And I thought it would be really fun, obviously once everybody's off of the pain meds and post-pain, how do we bring back the romance and the sexual intimacy? So I'm not sure what that's going to be titled, but sexual tips and tricks In recovery.
For the
How about that?
physically handicapped, physically impaired,
For the temporarily physically impaired.
or even maybe the fully or permanently physically impaired.
Well, that's not our area of expertise. So we're just gonna, they're fabulous books on sex with disabilities, but we're not really that capable in doing that.
Yeah.
What would be most interesting is something that's applicable to us is post-recovery. How can we bring some spark and some spunk back? So look for that one.
Yep.
Any questions, please let us know. We always like to hear from you because it's for you that we do this type of education and learning.
And stay tuned for future Naked Talks, as well as we're going to start having workshops online as well. So, all right, so I think that wraps it up.
Ta-ta, everyone.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye.